you doing? Good. How you been? Everything, nice to see you. Everything going well at Grace? Hey, my English license is C. I'm actually. Then there's Steve Barron. They don't know. I see him. Hey, what's up, Sal? Don't get me trouble. No, what? Oh, no, not a sweat.
Special meeting except for us right now and the media.
Well?
Hi. I didn't see you walk in. You were up? About what? Come on. Money. Lots and lots of money.
I just want to point out again. Look, we are on the same plane.
$900,000.
We are on the same plane. In the same room, same time.
You know what I think it is? I think it's the cloak of that jacket. We have juice the store.
I have one similar.
Mine's slightly lighter, but not that much. We look like
I'm ready to. Thanks. You want? Oh, absolutely. Then you have it. Did you tell Larry?
Here, why don't you move in? No, I have to get out. I'm gonna have to sign.
Oh, well then you can do it. I have a little courtesy of the floor. I have a little courtesy of the floor. Yeah. What? Yeah, he's
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. We'd like to start the Economic Development Committee meeting. We would have anyone from courtesy of the floor. County Executive.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. Lamont McClure, Bethlehem Township. The purpose for me rising today is Mr. Vincent Sorgi is here with us, and he'll probably be introducing himself to you and explaining to you why he's here. But the occasion of his appearance requires me to tell you how helpful he was. He's the Chief Financial Officer of I think that's his title, of PPL, and he was very instrumental in helping get the generators on schedule and kept on schedule at Graysdale. We still might not have them hooked up if he didn't intervene and help us with that. I'd also tell you, along the PPL lines, and I'm not punning, they've been, with respect to relocations, so they don't have much in the way of utilities around our bridges, but with respect to relocations, they've been wonderful to work with. Just wanted to let you know that. What?
I was like, yeah, PPL is awesome.
Yep, they have been so far. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for courtesy of the floor? Okay, seeing none, we have a presentation from the Da Vinci Science Center.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming. This is our only agenda item this evening because of the scope that they want to deliver to you today regarding Da Vinci Science Center. So I'd like to welcome up Lynn Erickson, who is the president of Da Vinci.
And Vince Sorgi.
And Vince,
the chair
ready?
of the board. So actually, we're going to kick it off. Vince is going to kick it off, so I'll let him go ahead, and I'll be back in a few minutes.
Okay.
Very good.
If you wouldn't mind stating your name, please, for the record.
Sure. I'm Vince Sorgi, CFO for PPL Corporation, chairman of the board of the Da Vinci Science Center.
Thank you.
Joining me this evening, Lynn Erickson, CEO and executive director from the Da Vinci Science Center, and also Sal Panto. Obviously, you all know Sal, mayor of Easton. Thank you, President Heckman and the council members, for having us here and inviting us to provide an update on the master plan for the Da Vinci Science City project. Thank you also for the generous financial support that the county provided to the project over the last year. That support has been instrumental in helping us to accomplish what we needed to over the last year. So again, thank you. Thank you for that as well. I plan to introduce the presentation, and then Lynn and the mayor will take you through the details. We'll provide an overview of the project, share the work that has been completed to date, and then talk about kind of next steps over the next few months. Following the presentation, we certainly look forward to answering your questions. Just by way of background on the project, about 4 years ago, the Da Vinci Science Center engaged in a strategic planning process to address how best we could fulfill our mission of bringing science to life and lives to science in service to our community. We collected a lot of data on the needs of STEM education in the area, gathered feedback through individual meetings, focus groups. We engaged an outside consulting firm to benchmark our science center against many other centers across the country, specifically for those areas that have a similar MSA to the Lehigh Valley. At the end of the process, we concluded that our existing science center was way undersized for the region, and that if we were able to expand our operations, we could deliver on our mission to significantly more people than we currently do today. And that would be going from about 150,000 people a year today to somewhere between 400 and 600,000 annually. So then we began to explore our options for expansion. After about 2 years of extensive analysis and meetings with all three of the major cities in the Lehigh Valley, Easton, Bethlehem, and Allentown, in November of 2006, we announced a memorandum of understanding with the city of Easton to develop plans for a major new science center in the downtown area. One of our primary goals over the MOU period was to develop a master plan for the project, and that has now been completed. You'll hear more about the details of that master plan in a few minutes. We've developed a bold vision for the Da Vinci Science City. There is no doubt about that. But we believe that this project is critically important to the region. The greater Lehigh Valley region is currently among the top 5 fastest growing regions in the Northeast United States. The region's continued growth, however, depends on an ongoing supply of talent in the science, technology, engineering, and math fields, including the arts, to fulfill these 21st century jobs. For the region to continue to grow and thrive, we must invest in STEAM education and build that pipeline of skilled workers that will attract not only new companies to come into the region, but also to help our existing companies grow. I recognize that the scope and the scale of this project is unprecedented in the Lehigh Valley. And I know that some have questioned if it is feasible to fund a project of this size and whether or not it can be operationally sustainable. We are currently testing our ability to raise between $120 and $160 million for the project. Lynn will share with you more details on where we think that funding can come from. In the fall of this year, however, based on the funding progress at that time, we will commit to a project scope and scale. At the low end of that $120 million estimate, we can deliver an incredible experience featuring the major components of the project that you will see tonight, including a 100-foot body that's also an exhibit, a nature dome, and a changing exhibit gallery. These will be the iconic experiences that will attract visitors and provide rich educational experiences for our youth, our families, and for our schools. We've also developed a preliminary business plan to test the financial viability of a $120 million plus project, and we believe it would be sustainable. However, if we determine that the project scope is less than $120 million, say $100 million, then we would need to engage our architects and scale back the project and then redo the business plan based on that new exhibit offering, which we are fully prepared to do if necessary. At the end of the day, we will move forward with a project that we can fully fund and be confident in that the operations will be financially sustainable in the long term. I can assure the council that none of us, not me, not Lynn, not the Da Vinci board, not Sal, not the city council, none of us are interested in building something that we don't think will be financially sustainable once it's up and running. And in fact, the goal for this project is to be a major source of economic vitality for the region, not be a drain on it. So the next major milestone for the project is signing a development agreement with the City of Easton, which we are working hard to accomplish over the next couple weeks, at which time we will then move forward with plans to design and build Da Vinci Science City. We're still extremely excited at Da Vinci Science Center about the opportunity to build a world-class science center in the City of Easton that will benefit our children, families, and schools for decades to come. Thank you very much, and I'll turn it over to Lynn to get into the detailed presentation.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Vince, and thank you also to all the members of council, the chair, to County Executive Lamont McClure, Tina, and Mark for inviting us to provide an update today. As Vince indicated, I'm going to give you a little background, provide an overview, since some of the council members are new, a little more detailed overview on the vision for the project, but then especially get into the master plan, the business plan, the marketing study, and how we're going to be able to pull all this together. I am going to just go to the next slide myself. I forgot to ask that before. Yes. Perfect. Okay, great. All right. Just a quick by way of background. So I'm not sure. I'm hoping all of you have been to the Da Vinci Science Center in Easton. Vince already mentioned we're serving about 150,000 people. We were established over 25 years ago.
Yeah, you mean now.
We've had about 25% growth since 2015. And we're passionate about our mission to bring science to life and lives to science and to advance STEM education in our region. Impact is very important to us. Impact is about the numbers of people we serve, but impact is also about the educational impact on those whose lives we touch. We measure impact by tracking participation and also evaluating student learning and student interest in STEM. We use surveys and testing to assess the educational impact. We also have been recognized regionally and nationally for our programming, including recognition nationally for our teacher professional development programs and regionally for being a very strong educational partner. Why are we building this new science center? Our current facility cannot meet the demand for STEM education that Vince spoke about the demand and the importance of STEM education for our local companies to thrive. STEM education helps develop 21st century skills. Most future jobs, not just STEM jobs, require understanding of science and math. And as you can see from this chart, our participation numbers have been growing dramatically over the last several years. The red is in-building participation. That's got about a 30% growth over that period. The blue is outreach programs. We do quite a bit with outreach where we go out into the community. So that brings us to our vision and plans for Da Vinci Science City. We have been in this MOU period with the City of Easton and been working for a couple of years to develop these plans. I will say that, just a reminder, in addition to our Easton site, we will continue to operate our present site. We will repurpose the present site to serve children under age 8. So that will be like a children's museum, looking at preschool and maybe kindergarten grades K and 1. And then they will be able to continue their hands-on science experiences at this new facility. So we'll serve the continuum of needs from very young children through adults and individuals of all ages. We will also continue to expand our outreach programs, going out into the community and doing programming at school and community sites, and in many cases reaching those young people where the need is the greatest. Now, the master plan we've been working on for over an 18-month period. It includes multiple components. It includes a facilities and exhibits component, the results of our marketing studies, a competitive benchmarking report, and a comprehensive business plan. You have at your desks or your seats, you have a big, long document that looks like this. Mm-hmm. That's kind of like a summary of all of the components of the master plan. The vision, the business plan, the marketing study. You have a document like this, which is the business plan. The overview, there are many, many spreadsheets that go behind this, but it's an overview of the business plan. And then you have our brochure that we're getting actually, don't have it professionally printed yet, but this is a preview copy and we wanted you to have a copy. So those are things you can take with you and browse through. The master plan details that I'm reviewing this evening, they go into greater depth in the larger document. So why Da Vinci Science City? Why are we doing this project? In addition to the growing demand for STEM education, the Lehigh Valley is experiencing an economic renaissance, with the region advancing from a heavy industry-based economy to one that's diversified across several areas, including advanced manufacturing, healthcare and the life sciences, and energy and the environment. We want to showcase local industry at this facility. We want visitors to know that the Lehigh Valley is home to companies like Air Products, PPL, Lutron, Martin Guitar, Crayola, Victaulic, Just Born, as well as world-class healthcare facilities and recently attracted companies like Amazon and Air Liquide. We also want our visitors to learn more about the beautiful open spaces in the region, and our residents to appreciate them more and learn how they can protect and preserve the environment. Da Vinci Science City will stand as a symbol of the economic renaissance in the region. It will also be a regional hub for STEAM education. We believe that we can design a science center on par with the Franklin Institute in Philadelphia and the Carnegie Museum in Pittsburgh. I should say Carnegie Science Center in Pittsburgh. So let's look at the vision for the facility and walk through each of these areas. First, we're designing a world-class facility. The concept design was put together by an internationally renowned architect, EHDD of San Francisco. They were out here many times. It will be the vision calls for 130,000 square foot building with 50,000 square feet of exhibits. The photo there is of the Plaza. This building the site is in a floodplain. The design of the building is right now pushed back on the property. It's definitely lifted up so that all the interior space will be out of both the 100-year and the 500-year floodplain, and you'll enter beneath the legs of the Vitruvian person and have to take the elevator or stairs up one level. The public plaza will be designed to educate about flood mitigation. The site itself will be an urban wetland with interactive exhibits and features. You can see the permeable paving in the front of the diagram. This is a strategic site positioned at the gateway to downtown Easton. It's easily accessible to major highways, and once built, it overlooks the confluence of the Lehigh and the Delaware. We've tested that out. The mayor took us on top of City Hall. Listed here are some of the key elements of Da Vinci Science City. I'm going to talk specifically about the core exhibit areas, science and me, science and nature, and science and technology. But there's several other areas that will be important in the facility. One of those is a Leonardo da Vinci experience. We are the Da Vinci Science City. That will set us apart. You'll know that from the moment you approach and see that 100-foot Vitruvian human body experience. There will also be a bronze sculpture at the entrance of Leonardo's horse. And then you'll continue once inside to learn more about Charlie Dent, Leonardo's horse, as well as Leonardo's wide-ranging contributions to science, art, technology, and the study of nature. We'll have a changing exhibit gallery that can feature exhibits, the major blockbusters that tour around to the cities, like Harry Potter, the Titanic, Pixar, and others. There'll be an observatory, a theater that seats 400 that can show 3D and 4D giant screen films, as well as host productions. So it will be a theater, a proscenium-style theater with the capability for production space so that you can show Broadway shows, a flight tunnel, and a creativity studio. Now this, when I said Broadway shows, Broadway-type facilities, we're not going to suddenly start competing with the State Theater, but we'll have the kind of facilities that will allow you to have the lighting and sound and so forth to do major science shows. Let's look at the first of 3 core exhibit areas, science and me. This is a 100-foot body that will celebrate the human body, teach folks how it works, and explain how to keep it healthy. Those are ramps going in and out of the body. There'll be 4 major areas where you will experience multimedia, immersive experiences. So you can imagine at the head, learning about the brain and spinal cord, in the chest, your heart and lungs, in the gut, your digestive system, in the knees, the muscular and skeletal systems. Then on the sides of the ramps, at the ends of each of the ramps, there will be exhibit galleries with interactive exhibits where you can explore these topics further. Here's another rendering that shows the 100-foot body. The attempt here is to give you a sense of those spaces that you can walk through. So it's kind of showing the heart area, the digestive area, the heart area, and the brain. In addition, it's giving you a sense of the idea of interactive exhibits at the ends of the ramps. Exhibits that may include plastinates, as shown there, and certainly interactive table exhibits where you can explore the multiple systems of the human body. The second major exhibit area is science and nature. All of these exhibit areas are intended to be topics that are relatable and relevant, not the Hall of Physics, the Hall of Electricity. I'm not saying those aren't important topics, but we want to capture the imagination of folks and get them to come and learn about science. So these are things that are important and relevant to our everyday lives. So science and nature will feature the Delaware and Lehigh River watersheds and immerse you in 3 ecosystems of the watersheds. You'll experience a full day cycle, and you will walk from the meadow to the forest and then to the river. You will end when you study and experience the Delaware and Lehigh rivers and their ecosystems. You will have a chance to learn about the geological formation of the region. You'll also end that experience overlooking the confluence of the Delaware and the Lehigh. And pictured there are some river otters. You know, on the left-hand side, the meadow experience will feature a butterfly and insect garden. Very immersive. You'll learn a little bit about invasive species. And the Nature Dome will feature a forest at night. So the signature element of that science and nature experience has not been done before. We know there are biodomes or rainforests, you know, indoor forests, but not indoor forests where the experience is at night. You can go to zoos where you can see in jewel boxes animals, and they reverse the clock. We are taking kind of that a biodome rainforest experience, and we're reversing the clock. This will be a full-scale forest, 45 feet tall. The leaves will fall in the fall, so it'll be a little colder. Blossoms, you know, they will come back in the spring. And the animals will be nocturnal animals. These are live animals. There's pictured there, if you look really closely, you can see a bobcat, you can see raccoons, there's possums, there's synchronous fireflies. You will have a chance to get up front, close and personal with these animals, but they will be living in this overall forest environment. There are 2 walkways. One is on the ground level, and then one is through the treetops. The idea here is for you to experience, in some ways, some things that you might see in your backyard, in the meadow, or in the forests of northeastern Pennsylvania, but you will learn to appreciate those environments more. We want to get you out on the trails. We want to get you out in the open spaces and appreciating those. We're working with the Wildlands, the Delaware National Heritage Corridor, the Scenic Delaware, a variety of Jacobsburg Environmental Center, a variety of area environmental organizations to help develop this space. And then we want to promote those great regional resources we have and get people outdoors to experience many of the programs that they offer. In science and technology, this is about learning about technologies that are just emerging. On the left, I love the one on the left. So these are, we're going to have 3 exhibit areas here: science at home, science in the workplace, and science in the community. At the left, this is, check out Moli.com. This is an illustration from a robotic kitchen where you can have a robot that cooks your dinner, that gets the food out, cooks the meal, and cleans up. I want one of these, but that's the kind of thing that you'll be able to learn about and experience. The workplace I'll come back to in a minute. Science and technology in the community, all kinds of things we can explore, from autonomous vehicles to energy use to managing safety and traffic using the latest technologies. The signature experience here will be the Lehigh Valley factory floor. Manufacturing is 18% of the gross domestic product in Lehigh Valley and employs about 10% of the population. There are huge demands for jobs in that area, and it's not the heavy manufacturing of years gone by. So we want to expose young people and families to cutting-edge concepts in manufacturing that are going on in our local workplaces, and we will partner with our local companies to create this experience. There'll be a number of visitor amenities in this facility, from a gift shop to food service, an event center, as well as adjacent parking. Pictured there is the City Hall garage, which is right next to the site. That will be one of the primary locations where people will be able to park. Let's move on into the market research. We engaged a company called H2R Market Research out of St. Louis, Missouri, to conduct a marketing research study to get consumer feedback on the proposed plans and also to project the number of visitors we might attract. In the consumer research component of the study, they surveyed 1,000 people within a 100-mile radius of Easton. The results showed a very strong appeal, overall appeal, for Science City. In particular, the 100-foot-tall human body and the forest at night were very highly rated. And there was no price resistance. So we tested kind of half the group for one price and half the group for another price. The differences were not significant between charging $20 and $25. They did some concept testing and looked at the consumer's overall interest in Science City. That's the circle at the left, likability. Then the circle right next to it is about the consumer's interest in visiting. The blue shows the response to Da Vinci Science City. And then in gray underneath, so it shows 93% of the respondents really liked the concepts we proposed. And we introduced all the major concepts and experiences of Science City. 81% intended to visit. If you look underneath there, it shows the industry norms. H2R surveys maybe 20 of these kinds of museums attractions annually. So they compared the results they got from our survey with the results they got from other surveys. And we performed quite well, 10 to 13% higher than, 11 to 13% higher than the averages they typically experience. On the right, there's data about how long individuals would like to visit. The average visitor would spend 3.5 hours at Science City. This is important because for longer visits, first of all, there's more opportunity for learning. And second of all, families will drive an hour or more for a visit that's going to be 3.5 hours. They're not going to drive an hour or more for an hour-long visit. H2R also did extensive data gathering and analysis to develop a low, medium, and high attendance estimate for a stabilized year of operations. A stabilized year means not the first year or the second year where attendance is typically very high because you're the new kid on the block, but rather 3 years out. Their analysis included use of a proprietary algorithm to estimate attendance from consumer survey data that they gathered from their clients. They looked at demographics, and then they also benchmarked Science City against other similar science centers in similar-sized markets. The mid-range attendance that they projected is shown on the screen as 635,000. In addition to the comprehensive marketing research study conducted by H2R, we also conducted multiple other attendance studies. The attendance projections in these studies range from about 400,000 a year, which is what Crayola gets, to over 700,000 a year. For the development of our business operating plan, we used a stabilized year annual attendance of 600,000, but we tested sensitivities at 400 and 500,000. As Vince indicated, we have to make sure we have a financially viable operation. In terms of industry benchmarking, we contracted with an outside firm to look at our projections with other science centers across the country. So we looked at admissions revenue, that's essentially revenue per visitor. We looked at net revenue from ancillary business operations. Those would be things like an event center or our educational programs. You can come to educational workshops without paying admission to the center. You might sign up for a Saturday workshop, for example. Occupancy expenses per square foot, and the EBITDA from operations. And how did all our financial numbers stack up with these others? And they were in line with industry benchmarks. Let's take a look at the business plan. First, we'll look at the project cost. Oppenheim Lewis, working with EHDD, our architects, did a detailed estimate for the cost based on the overall vision. You'll see that the capital cost, meaning the building and the exhibits, came in at $127 million. The site and site development are another $16 million. There are many soft costs, including the planning effort we've been doing now, associated with a project of this magnitude. First of all, you have to hire people before you open. You have to hire people out a little bit and provide the training. You have to do marketing in advance of opening. There's all the fundraising that goes on between now and opening. So there's a lot of work. There'll be additional studies, I'm sure. So those soft costs we estimate to be $7 million. And financing, this is an estimate of $10 million. When we're looking at the total project costs, we have to include financing. As Vince said, we're not going to, I believe he said, I'm trying to think now, but we're not going to spend, pay down debt from this facility with operating dollars. That's not a financially viable model. So the total project cost then is $160 million all in. Okay, as Vince indicated, we're testing the ability to raise between 120 and 160 million. We believe we can deliver a very compelling experience at 120 million. There's also the possibility of phasing the project. Let's look at this high-level review of the funding plan, and I'll talk a little bit about some of the funding sources. So you have the category public and private at the left. You have the goal with the range, showing different amounts to get from 120 to 160 million. The dollars committed to date, and the current pipeline. Now, pipeline means entities where we're in active discussion and writing grants or pursuing funding or talking about funding amounts with them. We don't know that we'll get those amounts, but those are the dollar values of the conversations and opportunities that we're currently in discussion. Let's talk about the public funding first. So public funding includes local, state, and federal. Local funding would be both city might be county, would be, and then, of course, we'll get to state funding in a minute. So as you know, going across, the city has committed $30 million, and we will be executing in their memorandum of understanding, and we will be executing an agreement with them over the coming months, this quarter. Actually, we hope to get it done within the next month. The state includes a current commitment of $20 million from the Gaming and Economic Development Fund, as well as we will be pursuing additional capital funding and some competitive awards. You can imagine the Department of Labor, Department of Environmental Protection, for example. Capital funding would be things like RCAP. The federal funding includes competitive awards from federal agencies, as well as tax incentive and private investment opportunities. There's potentially significant funding to be secured at the federal level. So let's look at where we are right now. 50, that's 30 from the city and 20 from the state. We could envision potentially another 10 from the state and 20 from federal. A good portion of that federal would be potentially new market tax credits. About 2/3 of this project will be funded with public funding. If you look at private funding, corporate funding is currently our highest priority as we're seeking to secure sponsors for the major exhibit areas. These are naming opportunities like Coca-Cola Park and the PPL Center, marketing sponsorships. We hope to secure $15 to $20 million from that kind of support. Foundations include local, but primarily regional and national entities. A project as ambitious as Science City is providing us with the entree to foundations outside the area, which we wouldn't have already. We are in conversation with foundations who have expressed interest in the project. Individuals is self-explanatory. So as I said, we raised $52.5 million to date, with more in the pipeline. The city's commitment to fund 25% of the project, up to $30 million, has provided us with a solid foundation to leverage other funding. The $20 million in funding from the state is unprecedented for this region. The Lehigh Valley has never received funding from the Gaming and Economic Development and Tourism Fund, and no other project of this type has received state funding of this magnitude. Individual board members of the Da Vinci Science Center contributed $600,000 of our $1.23 million budget for the master planning period. We've actually spent, I think we're pushing up to $1.4 million for planning thus far, but individual donors, board members, contributed $600,000, and they have committed an additional $1.9 million thus far, and that will be secured once we get the agreement signed with the City of Easton. Let's move on to financing. We have retained PFM as a financial consultant. They will be submitting a financing report, as you see on the screen, to the board in May. They're looking at short-term bridge financing, potentially to be used during the design of this facility to pay the architects, and then the big funding, of course, is the construction financing. As we've said before, the financing plan will not include debt to be paid back from operations. This is a summary of the pro forma income statements for a stabilized year of operations, looking at attendance levels of 400,000, 500,000, and 600,000. We developed a very detailed plan, including all the staffing positions, full-time, part-time, and all the details associated with operating a facility of this magnitude. We used a bottoms-up approach, and we benchmarked, as you saw earlier, the results we got with support from AECOM as part of the work they performed for their outside benchmarking study. We need a strong EBITDA, which means earnings before interest and taxes and depreciation. We need a strong EBITDA in order to be financially viable. The EBITDA, revenue in the EBITDA would be used to build a capital reserve and an operating reserve. The capital reserve is necessary for ongoing investment in exhibits because we need to keep people coming back, and the operating reserve is necessary to be able to support dips in attendance during tough economic times. You'll see there that we feel we have a very strong EBITDA at 500,000 and 600,000. It's light at 400,000. At the 400,000 attendance level, we would need to have a greater amount of fundraising than is currently projected to support operations. How are we doing on time? Oh, I'm just about to wrap up. Economic impact, you can see on the screen the potential impact from spending, the annual impact from operations and spending. Those includes jobs directly impacted by visitors coming to Science City, 39.8 million, annual direct economic impact, and then one-time impact from construction, 213 million, and 1,573 jobs over a 2-year period. In terms of benefits to Northampton County, we expect 80% of the visitors to be from outside Northampton County, with about 11.4 million spent annually from visitors outside the Lehigh Valley, including 33.6 million spent by visitors staying overnight. We anticipate a payroll of about 7 million. That includes the for-profit partners on the site doing events and catering activities and retail activities. And the majority of those employees will most likely live in Northampton County. And then Science City is going to work really hard to provide training for local residents, to provide as much employment as possible for those residents, with a particular commitment we're making to the city of Easton to hire a large percentage of our entry-level employees from Easton. Next steps, key milestones. Our first major milestone is to execute the development agreement with the city of Easton, which will essentially commit us to moving forward with the design and construction of a new science center in downtown Easton. We will finalize a financing plan in May, as I mentioned earlier, engage a design team this summer to start the schematic design, but then commit to the scope of the project in the fall of this year, the scope and scale. We'll know, we hope to be about 70% of the way through the fundraising at that point, and we'll know based on the gifts we have received to date what we can anticipate going forward. We expect to go to groundbreaking in fall of 2020 and to open late in the year of 2022. It takes about a year to design the facility and 2 years to build it. We imagine an incredible vision for our young people, families, and schools in the Lehigh Valley. This will be a regional hub for STEAM education and demonstrate the incredible technology and innovation in our region. It will be an iconic destination, one of the first things that will come to mind in the future when people think of the Lehigh Valley. It will be a world-class facility designed by a world-class design team with local participation. We have already done RFPs for architects, and we required a local partner. And it will be a major new attraction in Northampton County. We're really excited about the potential to create this kind of resource and remain incredibly optimistic about our ability to deliver an amazing science center experience for all of us in the Lehigh Valley and certainly beyond. I thank you for the opportunity to provide an update. And before we open to questions, I'd like to invite the mayor to come to the podium.
Thank you, Lynn. Good evening. Welcome again to the Vinci Science Center and the Vinci Science City. I want to thank you all for inviting us to be here today and talk about and learn more about the most misunderstood project in the entire Lehigh Valley. There's so many rumors and innuendo out there about this project. To get it firsthand from not only Lynn and Vince, but also to understand what the consultants have told us, the marketing consultants, the business plan consultants. We've required them to do all this from the city's point of view, but they were doing it on their own anyway. If you look at the makeup of their board, they're not slouches. These are smart people who have made an impact on the Lehigh Valley in many ways. They know what they want to do. We have not been easy to work with, and I will apologize to Lynn and Vince. I've been pretty tough. It's been a good, strong year of negotiations, but I think after our meeting this afternoon, we're very close. Remember what I said from day one. This project cannot afford $30 million of taxpayers' money. Can't afford your taxpayers' money, but it can afford your county hotel tax money. But it can't afford taxpayers' money. What our money is derived specifically from this project, and I can tell you that we're there. We will present the development agreement to City Council in March, and we've had pretty good support. Matter of fact, we've had really good support from our own council members, who obviously asked the same tough questions I asked. Where are we going to get the money from? When I took office in 2008, it was very apparent to me that we don't have industries in Easton. We don't have fulfillment centers, distribution centers, warehouses, all the nice names they have for all those things going along in South Bethlehem, which is a great place for it. I'm not so sure I like it in all of our farmlands, but there's a lot of creative things happening in the valley, but it's not going to happen in Easton. We're 4.5 square miles. It's happening in our suburbs. Our industry, our only economy, is tourism economy. Now, that's not just people coming into Da Vinci. That's not just people coming to State Theater. People coming to our town for dinner, and Crayola, of course, and the college. But the most important thing we knew from day one is that in order to really succeed financially in our city, we needed another major family-friendly attraction. You may remember we tried to get the High School Sports Hall of Fame. We didn't get it. No one got it. It never came about. But we tried. We worked hard. We took a lot of blame and a lot of criticism for it, but that's okay. We reached for the stars. We think we've hit the planets with this one. This one is a real family-centered educational facility. So I thank you for inviting us to learn more about it. And I think within the next 60 days, 30 to 60 days, you'll see that the city has an agreement, and you'll find out where all the money's coming from, because that'll all be made public in our agreement. But I can tell you that Crayola Center is worth about $1.5 million a year to the city of Easton in direct financial money to our general fund. That doesn't count the extra money that the shoppers may shop in a store or go to lunch and dinner. That's just $1.5 million in direct contribution through business tax, amusement tax, and parking. So thank you very much for the time to, I'm sure they'll answer any questions you may have. If you have a question for the city, I would also let you, but I will tell you, it is definitely something that's not going to be paid by our taxpayers. Thank you. Tara.
I have a question for you. You just said that $1.5 million in direct contributions from businesses.
From Crayola.
From Crayola.
Just from Crayola.
Just from Crayola. That's how much revenue is generated from Crayola, from parking and
Parking,
everything else.
Earned income tax primarily, and the big one is the amusement tax. The city has a 5% amusement tax on any live entertainment.
Mm-hmm. So if 400,000 people are going to be attending Crayola, and you're going to ask that 400,000 people attend the Da Vinci Center or more, because you mentioned that the EBITDA is sensitive for the 400,000 mark, right? So if you're going to have all these people in Easton, where are they going to park?
Oh, that's part of our plan. You'll be hearing about that in March. I will tell you, we just put out 3 RFPs. One for the North 3rd Street parking lot, surface lot, which was where the Boyd Theater was. One from the North 4th Street parking lot, which is right across from our new police facility. And one for the South 3rd Street parking garage, which has to come down because it's outlived its useful life. We've had 11 proposals. 11 proposals. Not one of them is less than a $20 million investment, because we asked for mixed use. We don't want to just put up parking garages anymore. We want mixed use. So there's mixed use from every major developer you can imagine locally, and even some from as far away as New York, who are bidding and giving us proposals on that. I can also tell you that we are working right now to land a major company in the city, and one of the first questions they asked was, how many out-of-state, we can't bring our people from out of state, so how many people are trained in computer science, and is there a market for computer science? So we put them together with some headhunters. We talked to them about Access Networks, which is on Ferry Street, that came from San Francisco and is down there. And we put them together with some headhunters, and they're convinced now, I believe, that we can provide them with the labor force. This project, the most important thing long-term in my mind, and if you were at the Economic Outlook Summit yesterday by the Chamber, you know that the most important thing is workforce development, and that's what this is all about. The most important thing, I could care less about the live, and Lynn doesn't like when I say that, because you need the attraction portion of it also. But I can tell you right now, that factory floor, right now, Victaulic, major international pipe producer in the Lehigh Valley, right here in Easton, they cannot add a 3rd shift of machinists because they don't have any. All right? And every one of the 50 that they have is over the age of 55. We need to start training our workforce. Kevin, you know what that's all about. You guys are doing a great job in the building trades. We need to do it in all manufacturing trades. I was just recently up at EcoPax. I did a tour of EcoPax, and they make takeout containers for Chinese restaurants. They're having the same problem. They have 2 engineers on site that design and maintain their facility, their plastic extrusion, all those other things. That's what I see as the major factor here, is workforce development. But yes, you're right.
But you think that the city of Easton, in that 4-mile square plot, is going to be able to sustain?
You know, Tara, when I was a kid, we had 2 lanes in each direction. We were the commercial center for the entire region, including Warren and Hunter. We haven't even seen traffic or parking problems yet. We haven't seen it yet. We have had a 550-car garage that was built in the early 70s. When I was mayor from 84 to 92, we were losing $250,000 a year on that garage. Today, we're actually making money. But the taxpayers were subsidizing that garage at $250,000 a year. We right now had to stop our monthly passes at our garage next door to City Hall and at the 3rd Street garage because we just don't have the room. So yes, we are addressing all those concerns. We're addressing the traffic concerns. We're addressing well,
it's a capacity issue because you have a limited amount of space, and you're going to be welcoming this many people in, which is great for the economy and everything. But how sustainable is that flow of tourism, and how much can Easton expand to accommodate that?
We're not looking to expand. We're looking to use what we have.
Well, not
you have to
Easton
remember, the
itself,
city of Easton used to have 37,000 people. Today we have 26,000. Hopefully by the next census we'll be much closer to 30,000. But we had probably an additional 1,800 or more properties downtown that where people lived in and worked in, and they're not there anymore. They're all empty spaces. Our little city had a great central business district that is pretty much the heart has been ripped out of us through urban renewal, and what I call urban removal. So I think not only can we handle this project, I think we could still add a few more restaurants, a few more retailers. I mean, I'd like to see, I get all the time, I remember downtown Easton shoulder to shoulder on Friday nights. Yeah, so do I, but those days are gone. They all went to the malls, and now they go to online. And this is what is attractive. If you read any of the iconic books by Richard Florida or anyone else wants to talk about the creative class or the service class of people, or you want to talk about urbanology, I'm an urban person. I read right now I'm reading a book on walkability. Walkability for baby. That's what this is all about. It's bringing people. We got to stop worrying about parking. We got to start worrying about people getting down and moving around safely on bicycles and walking. And walkability is one of the most important things that attracts young millennials to a downtown community. And we don't have that yet. We need to get it. I agree with you 100%.
I would just add a comment that this is an issue for the board as well, of Da Vinci, because certainly we don't want to build something and then people can't find parking and then they don't come back. So,
Did you want to address at the mic? I'm sorry. Please. Thank you.
Vince Sorgi again, Da Vinci Board. I was just commenting that the parking is an issue certainly for the board and all of us at Da Vinci as well, because the success of this project will be attracting people to come back multiple times, and so we want to make sure that the experience is top rate from beginning to end. And if people are spending 20, 30 minutes trying to find someplace to park, they won't come back. And so we've been spending a lot of time with the mayor and his team on exactly this issue. It will be part of the discussions coming up with the development agreement, but it's certainly an issue that we've been focused on as well. The mayor assures us that he and his team have this one covered.
Yeah, we have right now. We've retained Walker Associates to do a parking study, and we'll have those results probably within the next 30 or 60 days as well. Hopefully in 2 weeks, but I'll say 30 to 60 days. It's a little bit more realistic.
It does seem, though, that walkability and bike paths and everything else are in direct contradiction with the amount of traffic that's going to come in. So it's just a feasibility thing, and I'm just trying to figure out and wrap my head around how it's possible to bring another 400,000 people to visit this if you also are trying to sustain Crayola at the same time and have these two together.
First thing I did when we were going after the Science City is I went to Crayola. Obviously, we would want to do anything that hurts our relationship with Crayola, and they endorsed the project, thinking it's the same thing. It's family-oriented. It's not, something that's going to deter from people coming into the city. One of the things that I really like is their outdoor activities. A lot of their learning experience, their outreach will be actually going across to the towpath and talking about the Lehigh and the Delaware Rivers being right there. Part of the parking problem is going to be resolved along Lehigh Drive. We own a whole area where right now we park the Crayola buses. Be very inexpensive to make it another deck. We can double the size of it. So we are looking at a walking path that would be protected from that lot to the Da Vinci Science City.
Okay.
Some of the other things we're looking at, you'll see probably I'm sure they're going to come back and say maybe another 600 cars. So we might put 700 at the Pine Street garage and 300 at the 4th Street garage, and on-site parking at their own in the North 3rd Street garage, which won't be a garage, probably be more like an area park. So we are very cognizant of that because we also know that we shouldn't be very concerned about automobiles. One of the things I think about in the future of the city is, do I want to take out a 25-year debt on a parking garage when cars may not be here in 25 years? So we're looking at how do you build a garage that can be repurposed, number one. Number two, we've started our car share program. We have 2 U-Haul car share downtown that are used all the time. We're trying to get 4 more. We have 2 on College Hill at the college and 2 downtown, and they're never available because young people, they want to rent and they want to borrow a car. They don't want to buy one. Pretty smart when you think about how much money I have to put into my car.
I have one comment about the parking that might be helpful a little bit. As Vince said, parking is really, really important to us. But we do have one thing to remember is our parking needs are ongoing, steady. It's not like the PPL Center. Everybody's coming into an event one night. You've got how many thousands of people are coming. They're all coming around the same time or within an hour, and they're all exiting at the same time. Visitors start coming to the Science City in the morning and then throughout the day. Yes, there's probably a concentration in the middle of the day, but we've charted out kind of when based on statistics and a lot of data and experience we have, what we can expect in terms of the flow of visitors and the amount of cars at any given time. But it's not like everyone doesn't come at the same time. It's more a steady, and it's every day. Again, it's not just one night of the week.
Mr. McGee.
Yes.
Questions?
Sure.
I had a question for Mr. Panto first. Or I'm sorry. Are we not ready for questions? Hi, I'm sorry. I had a different question, not about parking, but how comfortable are you, or maybe that's not the right way to phrase it, but the way that she laid out the vision sounds like there's an interior restaurant, snack, whatever place. Do you hope that people will get out and use other facilities in the city? Because I would think that we want this to be a way to drive tourism to other attractions as well and actually get to the city.
Absolutely.
But if it's all in one and I go there with my family and then I get out of town, that seems
First
to
of all, there
defeat
will not
the
be
purpose.
a restaurant. They've taken the restaurant out
Okay.
because of that concern. So there's no restaurant anymore. There are what they're calling grab and go, just like Crayola has. But if you're here with your family, it really helps to get out and get to a restaurant rather than eating there. The other thing is, what they're really talking about is the event center. We have great restaurants downtown, and I can tell you there's not a place downtown to hold a major event. Yesterday we had 300-some people at the Steel Stacks. Well, that's great. But I'd much rather have it in Easton with maybe a place that could hold 500 so it wasn't squeezed into 12 at a table and next to each other. And it's a great event that Chambers puts on. But maybe we could start hosting some of them in Easton as well. Right now we have no facility to host an event. I get calls a lot of times for conferences and conventions and trade shows. We don't have those facilities. So that's something that they've added to their Ballywig, and it's great.
What
One
would
other
the
thing I want to say
capacity for
about the
that
parking.
be? Sorry, what would the capacity for the event center be?
I believe it's 500.
Seat 500.
Seat 500.
Thank you.
The other thing I forgot to mention about parking is not only do they come at a different time, we have no problems with Crayola because, again, we have more problems with traffic when the State Theater lets out because they're all letting out at the same time.
Of course.
That's
Yeah.
the biggest problem.
Friday
And we
night.
love that problem because we love the theater.
Friday night's the worst.
Oh, the whole week. Your daughter knows that.
I know. I guess I had another question. who would do the marketing plan? Would that be a city responsibility that would be shared with Da Vinci Center to try to link some of the other existing attractions?
This is a Da Vinci project. It's not a city project. City will not be involved in marketing. We'll do the same thing we do now with Crayola and State Theater and Siegel Museum and Nurture Nature. Of course, we're always promoting them. But we don't have a marketing budget per se in City Hall.
Okay.
They have the marketing
Mayor,
budget.
Wouldn't the Discovery Lehigh Valley, they might get involved in that? right?
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely, Bill.
Okay.
They would, and they're dying to have something that they can promote in Easton because, I used to go to their meetings and say, well, what about all of us? We've got stuff down here, and they did. They do try to market the whole valley, and it's good. And I also might mention on parking. The other thing is we are now looking at apps, so that when people come in, they can find out where the parking is available, how many spaces are left in those garages. So we have that. We have an app. It's called. It's going to be called something like Discover Easton rather than just Discover Lehigh Valley, which is part of the Discover Lehigh Valley website, where you can punch in Easton things to do, and it tells you what to do and all those things. We're becoming much more electronic.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thank you.
It.
Any other questions for the mayor?
More just a statement. I've heard a lot of these same concerns in different communities. Does it take away from other businesses? I think Hotel Bethlehem's doing better now than ever. Since the Sands Hotel went in. So when we bring our people in, all the businesses seem to do well. Parking. I hope we have a problem if this project goes through with parking. I mean, that would be wonderful. That means it's working. Where do we park people? So I think they're valid concerns, but I've heard these before in busy streets. Allentown, wonderful thing to have busy streets in Allentown. Wonderful thing to have busy. I do understand what you're saying, but there's an upside to that too. It's an urban area, and what I really like about Easton is from that urban area we have great connections to our interstates. I mean, it's a shot right up the hill to 78. It's a shot right over there to 22. So they're valid concerns, but I think they're concerns. Hopefully, we have not have. I hope
they're concerns that we need to address, and I think we're addressing them.
Yeah. Can I just clarify my statement? I'm not just concerned about where people are going to park. I'm concerned about, just parking lots everywhere. I'm concerned about how it interacts with the bike paths and walking and the traffic in town. So it's more like a community issue because it does change the community when you put different structures like parking lots in places and high-rise parking lots because you have to stack cars on top of each other.
You might notice that the parking garage and intermodal of City Hall is behind the building. All of the proposals that we're looking at, the parking is behind a mixed-use building. We don't want to have just a parking garage again because I think you're absolutely right.
But it's how it changes the community and how it changes the culture of the community and how it gets around because you do have a walking city for the most part. And so that might change with the dynamics of entering this much. And so my concern was for that and for the capacity and the culture.
One thing we've asked Walker Associates to do is to give us both with and without Da Vinci. So we make sure that we plan for Da Vinci.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I just want to thank the mayor for being here. That's the first thing. And I know he's had his heart in this program for a long time. Since 2017, we had many meetings, and then when we jettisoned the aquarium, and we brought this new project in. But unfortunately, the questions I have are not for you, Sal. They're for
I'm glad.
Da Vinci. Okay.
No problem, Bob.
But you've been a good supporter. So.
No, I appreciate your support too. So appreciate that.
Well, one last comment too is the jobs that it's going to create.
Oh, there's no doubt.
So I don't know if we spent enough time on that, but
We
that's
probably did.
Probably a good thing.
Both construction jobs and aftermarket jobs. We're very fortunate. We have the company that's looking at Easton right now could bring as many as 150 jobs downtown. So, but they're concerned about workforce development. It's one of the biggest concerns. Will we have the employees that are skilled to work in their facility? So, thank you all.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yes.
I have a quick question for Lynn.
Well, she's coming up.
I think we all have questions for Lynn.
She's coming up.
Yeah. You better go. You're
Okay.
late.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think she's coming to the mic.
Add something about the jobs.
Take your microphone.
In the I believe we're showing right now 140 full-time equivalent jobs at Science City itself. There'll be other jobs created immediately in the surrounding area. Think about the gas station across the street, for example,
Yeah, ancillary
based on potentially increased business. But in Science City itself, that's full-time equivalent jobs.
What's the average salary or average
There,
pay?
the average salary is, I believe we looked at that because that came up in one of the applications we were doing, a family sustaining wage. Well, it depends how you define family sustained wage, but even the entry-level positions are $40,000
For entry level?
for full-time positions, not part-time positions, but for full-time positions.
I think Mr. Heckman
Yeah,
had a
quick
question.
What do you anticipate as your hours of operation? at the center?
You know, I don't know. Brian, do you want to say that right now? Our hours of operation are 10 to 5, and on pretty much we're open 361 days a year. I think I know Crayola is open on Christmas. I'm thinking we would explore that as well because they get a good attendance. And then we're open 12 to 5 on Sunday. I know we've talked about being open at least one evening for the general exhibit experience. We will have some components of the experience that are open at night. So that's like the whole Science Center. There may be some components, the iFly, skydiving experience, the observatory experience, the theater. But as far as official hours of operation, did you want to?
And that was fine. It was
Okay, all right.
I was just curious how.
We haven't set them exactly, but around that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Mr. Werner?
Lynn,
Yes.
thank you for coming today. And thanks for presenting to the newer members of this council what you have proposed since you changed the programs, okay? And also, thank you for not asking for any further money, for funding from
We're
us.
not asking for money tonight. We're here to, you asked us
Well, no,
to come. You asked us. We're here to
I
report,
didn't
though.
hear you ask for money, so I'm stating that right now,
We're
which is
not.
good. Okay. So therefore, I feel very good about everything right now, but I do have some questions as far as your business plan. Your pro forma income line, they're done using projected revenues, but it's experienced based upon a stabilized year of 600,000 annual visitors, okay? That's the top part of it. If you go to 400,000, you have to change things.
Yes.
Okay.
So I think it's about 450 is probably maybe a tipping point in order to have the reserves that we should have in place for really a sustainable operation. That's at the current scale.
All right. Well, you
know.
based your program on 600,000.
The vision is based on
Okay.
600,000.
And if my math may be wrong here, but in 2017, when this program was introduced, the cost was 130 million, roughly. And now, according to what I've seen here, it's $160 million total project.
If we did the total vision as suggested, yes, including financing, the original amount did not include
But-
financing.
so
Site development, that is correct.
So the original 130 million did not include those costs, those soft
That's
costs and
correct.
things? Okay.
That is correct.
If that's true, then based on the numbers you had approximately 38% of committed dollars back in December of 2018. And if that's true, if you go to the numbers, which you say you have 53 million, correct?
Yes.
Then you're still approximately at 38, maybe even less based on the 160 million.
That is correct.
So you're not gaining in your numbers.
Correct. We're a little bit on hold, and the reason we're on hold is because we haven't officially said we're doing the project. And so the agreement with the City of Easton, we've been in this kind of planning, testing out phase. And the agreement with the City of Easton is a very key milestone that we shift from planning to actually doing it. And so, quite honestly, if you're in your community relations office and you're bringing forward a proposal to the CEO of your company, I think it's a little tricky to bring forward the proposal to say they think they're going to do it, but they haven't committed yet. So we will be announcing, we expect to be announcing some major sponsorships in succession shortly after the announcement of this development agreement with the City of Easton. And then we will ramp up much more because people are waiting to see, is it happening?
I just wanted to make sure that I had seen the numbers correctly,
Yeah,
though.
that's
that
correct.
was-
No,
that
we've been
was-
holding at
You haven't
around
increased
50
your,
or up.
and you haven't increased your corporate sponsorship that much. It's mostly from the funding from the federal and city grants.
The primary, we have a few board members that have really stepped up, but the primary private support, corporate support was for the planning phase.
Okay.
Okay, and now we're kind of wrapping up this planning phase and going into the development phase.
Okay.
As I said, we are in active discussion, and in some cases in terms,
Okay.
with some major sponsors that will be announced after the agreement is signed.
And one more question, if I may.
And then it'll ramp up further.
Because I'm on a roll.
No, that's a good question.
You brought something new to the table here this evening. Sir, you brought it up. You said you would scale back the business plan. I heard that.
Yes.
What does that mean? Does that mean if we are looking at less than that 600,000 number, or that you're anticipating something to change, you'll change the plan again? You'll change the designs?
Yes, so let's talk about that for a couple of minutes. At the current vision, the main elements of it, we believe we can deliver at $120 million all in. The
That's
main
soft cost
elements.
and
So we
everything.
might phase. That would not include, for example, a theater. Might not include a theater. In fact, we've looked at that. It probably would not include a theater. But the main elements of the body, the nature dome, the changing exhibit gallery, the things that are the immersive experiences that will attract our local residents and tourists to the area, we can deliver at $120 million all in. At that, we have looked at potentially the attendance might be lower, a little bit lower at that level, and we've looked at the financial plan, a business plan, to operate at, if we did a $120 million project, what would be the business plan for a $120 million project? I don't remember what the exact attendance came out, but I think we tested it at 450,000, for example. So I'm quite certain, and I can get back to you on that. We believe we could have a financially viable operation with a project at 120. When we start going a lot lower than that, we can't have some of the features that are presently proposed in the way they're proposed. So we would have to bring in our architects and our team and revisit the experiences that we would be proposing in the project. I feel quite confident the 100-foot body is there to stay, because that's such a key part of Da Vinci and who we are, and I think a really dynamic experience. But if we were able to raise only $100 million, we would have to scale back. Now, that might mean taking some of the other experiences and it's not so many square feet. We have to revisit what the other experiences might be. Maybe then there's a nature dome, but it's a smaller experience. We have to go back and study that further. The present vision works for $120 million or more.
Okay, well,
And we believe we can have a financially viable operation.
I
for
prefaced
that.
everything I said, that it's not
No.
costing this county anything right now, so that's fine. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm asking these questions merely out of, if I were reviewing this in front of this council, and,
yeah.
and those figures were sitting there in front of me, I would
We are
have-
asking those questions.
I would-
the
I would-
board, our staff is asking those questions. The board is asking those questions.
So your plan's in flux, actually, until you get to a specific point of your gifting, your to date, correct?
Correct. We're testing the 120 million
Yes.
and up right now. We are committed. We are committed to doing a science center in Easton. The scale is not clear.
Okay.
It's going to be of significant scope because of the commitment we have from the city and the state already, and that's without really a lot of private dollars. So it's going to be of significant scope. But the question is it 100? Is it 100 million? Is it 120 million? Is it 130 million? We don't know that yet.
Well, okay, I just realized, I just
Yeah.
was looking at the numbers, that's all, and I'm saying to
Yeah.
you, it went from 120 to 160, now the sustainability study numbers are 120 million plus, right? Okay.
Yes, we'd have to do a new business plan. If we go below, significantly below, we have to do a totally new business
So you
plan.
have to, does that mean you?
It's not starting
Okay,
over.
all right, okay.
But, because actually we have a great model now where we can plug in
Okay,
all kinds of different
all right.
things. So that's how we were able to look at even the 120 million.
Again,
the
I thank you
components.
for this update for everyone, but like I said,
Yeah.
I as long as the county is eagerly awaiting to see how you do.
Just a couple comments.
Yes, please.
On the fundraising question,
very good question. Your analysis was right on. As the CFO of PPL, I can tell you it's very difficult for us to approve a project that we don't know is actually going to happen in our budgeting process. So Lynn has, her and her team have done a great job in meeting with many companies in the Lehigh Valley. And we have a lot of money that we believe once we can demonstrate with a development agreement with the mayor and the city that those folks will sign up on the dotted line. So, but it's very hard for them to commit in their budgeting process if they don't really know, because we need to tell them not only the amount, but over what period of time and when will it begin. It's just a natural part of how we do our budgeting. So that's really the reason why you haven't seen a lot of the corporate numbers go up yet. We do have quite a bit of money sitting.
I understand that the commitments can't be made until you finalize a deal. People are holding it close to their vest.
Right.
I get that. What did concern me was the fact that after 2 years of fundraising and talking about it, that the number hadn't moved much from the 36 to 38% of the goal, and that bothered me. Only from a standpoint that you need to rapidly gain income and be fiscally responsible, or Easton's on the hook for 30 mil.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, even the public funding that we're exploring requires a development agreement to demonstrate that the project.
It was significantly lower than expected when I looked at the corporate and the individual, and it just wasn't there. So. No, and I'm not. It's not a negative. I'm just pointing out what I read. That's all.
No, it's it's an issue that Lynn and I and the board talk about. I think the reality is we have a not-for-profit size staff, and the city has minimal staff, and the teams are doing a lot of great things with our consultants to move the ball forward, but really until we have that, we're not going to see a lot of that 53 moving up.
Appreciate that.
Sure.
Bill?
Yeah, we have a question for who?
Whoever,
she's
Mrs.
coming
Anderson.
back up to the,
Oh, okay.
I have one in front of you.
Okay.
Because
Yeah.
there's a commitment there.
Yeah. So I have a couple questions. The first time you approached us, you talked about having schools and lower income availability and accessibility from all different people, and you have this $20 to $25 price tag ticket. So some of that is a concern to me. My other concern is that you say that the Vitruvian Man is going to bring people to help celebrate the human body. That really says to me that we're celebrating that male figure right there. So what are you going to do in your exhibit so that when a little girl comes to the exhibit that she will appreciate her body as much as the Vitruvian Man? Because it kind of sends a message.
And then I'm going to go back and respond to one other thing Vince said too. It will not look exactly like that, but we want it to be neutral and feel very accommodating to girls or boys. If you've seen our logo, I don't know if I have something on the logo, it's a stylized kind of, not cartoon exactly, figure. So the image itself, and we want you to be able to even project, potentially an opportunity to project yourself on there and see that, oh, you can fit within the dimensions of this person. Mm-hmm. But we want at the same time it to be obviously connected to Da Vinci. So that's where you get the 4 arms,
Yes.
you know. So we're going to have to balance and kind of work through the design, but I hear you totally. Obviously, I'm female also,
Right.
and we have a very strong women in science and engineering program, so we respect that totally.
Right.
And we have more work to do there in terms of how it will actually look. The building may not actually look exactly like this. This is a conceptual, rendering at this point. We haven't even tested, how much glass is out on the outside. What does that mean? So we have a lot more work to do on the actual design.
Right, but it's also an opportunity to talk about, different inclusivity arguments, things like that. When you have the Vitruvian Man, that comes out of history in a very sort of patriarchal time. So we're moving into the 21st century, and we want to be inclusive in how we portray male and female and everything else in between, the continuum. So we definitely want to be mindful of, I think, how you talk about celebrating the human body. And
I hear you. That's very, very good input.
So the accessibility that you had talked about, you can discuss that another time. My other concern was, you said that you're doing something that has never been done. You're going to have an exhibit where the impact of reversing daytime cycles for nocturnal animals, so people will be able to view that. First, is there a reason why that's never been done? And have you studied the impact that's going to have on the animals? Because to me, that seems cruel. And also having animals in glass is almost archaic. Like, I can't imagine what that's going to be like, but I want to know more, and I want to try to understand it, but it does sort of...
well, this is actually, on the one hand, it's not in a jewel boxes or the boxes where animals are in a small area. So this will be a much bigger area. The nocturnal changing the cycle, shifting you by 12 hours, basically is what we're talking about, has been done in many places. It just hasn't been done in a big immersive environment. So I visited the nocturnal exhibit at the Cincinnati Zoo, at the Omaha Zoo, and there has, they have studied, obviously, and looked carefully and want to be very careful on the impact on the animals that they have there.
Because I think we already know there's been studies done on the impact of animals in zoos, in cages and in small enclosures. And the trend, I think, is to get, well, maybe not have zoos, but to increase the expansion of the enclosure. And so if you have these animals, what kind of animals are you going to have, and how much room will they have, and how much impact will this have on them, and what is the value of putting these animals through this if they're being hurt?
Well, there's a very specific program through AZA, the Association of Aquariums and Zoos, that defines the kind of species collection program, and for zoos, for example, and where species are placed and for what purpose, with very strict guidelines of, we will have to have a veterinarian, for example, and we want to, one of the first hires we want to do, we will be adding staff to kind of the point that Bob Warner was saying a little bit about fundraising. Once we have this, I'll come back to that in a minute, but we will be adding staff specifically. One of the first hires we need to make is someone who has expertise in the zoo animal kind of habitat environmental world, because we do not currently have that expertise. My colleagues, however, I don't know if you have anything you want to add. Both of them worked at the Philadelphia Zoo in senior leadership positions. Joe was the chief operating officer of the Philadelphia Zoo, and Brian was the vice president of marketing. So they have quite a bit of experience in those kinds of environments. I don't know if you have any other comments in response to Tara's comments.
If he does, I'd like him to please come to the mic.
Come on, Joe.
Thank you.
So Joe is a chief project consultant that's been working with us on the project for the last few years.
Good.
I think there are.
And just state your name for the record.
My name is Joe Moore.
Thank you, sir.
So there are, I think, a couple different components of the question that you asked. One has to do with the exhibiting animals in a nocturnal environment, sort of reversing the clock. And that is a technique that is used in zoos pretty much around the country. It's certainly been carefully studied in terms of the animals and any kind of an impact that it may have on them. But it can be very useful. Most animals in zoos today, they come to zoos through programs, that are studying different species, many of whom are endangered. So there is a lot of work that goes on in zoos and in the wild by the experts who work at zoos to help, with certain populations. I think any animals, particularly mammals, that were to come into this collection would certainly not come out of the wild. They would probably come from rescue and rehab programs. That's often where they come from. So these are animals who couldn't exist in the wild. Or they may come from other accredited zoos around the United States where that particular population is involved in some kind of a species survival program. So that's sort of where they would come from. So it's not as if you're going out and trapping animals or something like that.
Right, but they're still animals. And
right.
Whether you believe that they're sentient or not, some people do. So just just trying to understand that an animal in an enclosure and reversing night to day on them and the care that they're going to be having in this type of facility is just my concern.
Sure, and that's certainly a very legitimate concern. This will be a brand new facility, so it would be built to the most modern standards. So a lot of research has been done with any of the species that you would be bringing into this facility in terms of what are the optimal conditions under which you can maintain an animal in a captive environment. And like I said, most of those animals would be coming either out of rescue and rehab programs, or they would be coming out of species survival programs. So none of those animals would be able to be released into the wild. You would just be supporting some larger environmental programs that are going on in the zoo community.
Does that answer your question?
No.
Yes, but I'd like to see some of the
Excuse
studies
me?
that you have. And
We have another
present
question for him?
Some of that information next time.
Oh, sure. There's one more question, sir, for you while you're at the mic.
There's
Mr.
two.
Hackman?
I'll have one too.
Oh.
Go.
Oh, it was Bob?
I
Okay.
think Ms. Zirinsky raises actually a very fair and pertinent point. I think there's two components to what she's saying, and that's the morality and the biology. And I'm not going to get into the morality because I think there has been a change in the public feeling about zoos. I mean, a zoo association, what a zoo is, what it isn't, what the future of zoos may be. And maybe it will be more perceived as endangered species preservation if the wild keeps disappearing. And that may be a new role for zoos rather than just trap an animal and put it there for display. The biological aspect is interesting in terms of flipping the clock. And I thought about that myself in terms of the predators. So I'm sure you're going to have some predators in that. And I mean, without getting into that, though, I think it might be helpful. You mentioned studies. And we often have projects where studies are quoted, but we don't often see any of the studies. Maybe Ms. Zirinsky would enjoy seeing some of the most recent studies done on how you mentioned that this is done and that's done, and studies have shown that might be very helpful. If that
Yeah, sure, absolutely. I mean, there has been work done, particularly on the clock reversal. So you see that it's something that is done quite often, so that you can study and understand animals in a nocturnal environment. That's a pretty common technique.
Well, people have questions about the morality of studying animals in certain ways anyway. You know what I mean? So
I don't think I can address that.
We're not going to get all into that can of worms, but...
But we would certainly be glad to share information on that.
And there is one thing, there's a difference between study and entertainment. This is definitely for entertainment, is it not?
Well, as Lynn had indicated, one of the first people who will be hired, will be a curator with expertise in
right, but no research
animals.
would be yielded from doing this to the animals.
No, actually there would be.
Oh, there would be.
Oh, absolutely. I think, if you were to have, let's say, bobcats or something like that, any animals there in captivity would certainly be part of a larger program, zoo-wide, across the zoo community, that is studying some aspect of that particular animal as an endangered species.
Okay.
Yes. No, there would be considerable amount of conservation-related work going on both on the animal and the plant side of your living collection.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate your answers.
Mr. Werner, do you have a question?
Just for Joe, since he's here, and keep you from up and down. Okay. Good to see you again. Okay. The building has extensive amounts of glass. The birds, are they going to be able to see out when they're flying around? Are they going to look out, or are they going to be enclosed?
So I can't tell you absolutely, but in most situations like this, if you have an indoor avian population,
then they're going to see out.
They will not be able to see out to the
Okay.
side, you know.
That will, okay, I got a phone call from people that are birders, okay?
Mhm.
They're very concerned about something called window strikes. Have you dealt with that?
Sure, so that would be birds
From the
on the
outside,
flying.
hitting into the window, yes.
Yes, and I know that.
Techniques that we're trying to,
I mean, we.
it was a member of our team that's no longer at the Science Center and had a meeting, but I know there's someone locally that does research on this
Yes.
at Muhlenberg, I believe.
Yes.
And there's specific
Dr.
techniques.
Dr. Crum, I think his name
Okay,
is, yeah.
in the design of
Yep.
the facility that we can utilize to make sure
Yes.
that birds are not flying in. That would
Apparently
be very
it has
important
to,
to us. We're
it has
in
to
a
do with
major-
reflection, apparently, on the
Yeah.
glass, and there is a screening, and this was all, I had no idea. I don't have anything about window strikes in my books, okay? But apparently, a lot of birds are picked up that were killed, and it's examined which species of bird flies into the glass, why they do it at certain times of the year. And one of the things they've been trying to do is stop the reflection, thinking that they can get in, okay? So a matter of information from people.
And this location, because
Yes.
we have so many
Yes.
birds migrating through the area,
Yes.
it would be very important.
Yeah,
And
I
as a
have-
science center, but just in general,
I have
for
two
us to
two
address
big
that.
birders, one from Lafayette, one from Muhlenberg. I got emails.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. We definitely think that that's important.
Okay.
I wanted to add one more thing to his comments before about the fundraising. Or do you want to go first?
You say you're going to...
I want to add something to his.
Sure, absolutely, please.
This project is of unprecedented scale for the Lehigh Valley. So had we come forward and said, oh, we're going to do a $120 million or $130 million project, and we're going to do a local campaign, and we're going to raise the money, I can't imagine anyone believing that that would be possible. It's one thing if it's Lehigh or Lafayette or something, but it's not going to be, a nonprofit of our type. So the strategy for fundraising is a little bit reverse. So we went first to get public money, major public money, because quite honestly, without major public money, we can't do a project of this scope and scale in the Lehigh Valley. So we were incredibly fortunate to get a mayor that stepped forward and said, I want to do this project. And that provided enormous leverage, which allowed us to then get that state money. We're continuing to work very aggressively on public funding, both at the state level, I mentioned before the agencies, RCAP, but also at the federal level, Economic Development Administration, new market tax credits, to get the corpus of funding that we can present to private donors to say, you know what, this is happening. You want to be a part of it. We have a significant amount of dollars on the table here, and something big is happening, and it becomes believable. So it's a little bit reverse. We're going to do a campaign private kind of planning study, like a feasibility study, but we will already be planning to do the project. It's not like we're testing if we're doing a project. We'll be testing a little bit the scale, so we'll go out to private donors, but usually you do that before you even start, at all. So the project is a little bit out of order from what people traditionally think about for fundraising of this scope.
Something you just said, and this is for the benefit of the new council members. Now, $20 million you're talking about, there was a base on the aquarium that was being offered, and then that was changed, and then the $20 million came into play. Is that correct?
The $20 million did not want the aquarium.
That's what I'm saying.
Right, correct.
So
That is
the
correct.
original plan did not include the $20 million.
No,
Oh, it did
We
include
were
it?
always going after
You were always
gaming
going
money.
after that?
We were
Okay.
always going after gaming money for a science center.
Okay.
And the local legislative delegation was very interested in providing that support, but they were not interested in supporting an aquarium.
But because of Ripley's situation, that came into play.
Yeah, there became a conflict.
Absolutely.
In terms of allocation of public funding.
Yes.
Yes, that's correct.
Just for clarity.
Mr. Dietz has a question.
Yeah, so
For the secretary.
I have a few. So I kind of got order. So the first one I'll bring up then kind of dovetails with the animal parts. We talked about this event or this center driving people to take our trails. I just question why we wouldn't fund a program like at Jacobsburg or on the trails. So when people go out to the nature, they're out there in the nature using the trails that we're investing heavily on. So I guess that one's more of a comment than a question. But what were the demographics that were used on the 1,000 people that were surveyed?
I believe, do you want to answer that, Brian, specifically? I could say generally what I think it is, but Brian managed that process.
My name is Brian Strohacker. I'm the Director of Business Development at the DPC
Did you say your
Science
name
Center.
again? I didn't hear.
Brian Strohacker. We surveyed 1,000 households within a 100-mile radius of Easton. I believe it was 25% of those households had to have children in the household and meet a minimum income requirement, which I believe was $75,000.
So I guess that's part of the key. So a minimum of 75. Well, what percentage of the area are actually at that or below? So I mean, is it taking a real actual snapshot of, you know what I mean, the percentage of income and salaries of people? And so, sure, if you inventory the top earners in the area, you know, you can skew the attendance, how often they would come. Someone making, 75
Sure.
or less,
We can look at the data both within that subset and outside of that subset, and the metrics are both very high. This is an ideal location for a science center. The three determinant factors in people visiting a science center are families with children in the household, high incomes, high education, and within both the 50-mile and the 100-mile ring of Easton, all of those metrics are significantly higher than the state level and the national level. That make it really an ideal location for a science center. But and we can, I believe we have shared the study. But if individual
That's what I was going to ask for.
If individual council members haven't seen the study, be happy to provide you with a copy of the full study, and we can break out the metrics that you're looking for, both within that sample size and outside of the sample size.
Yeah, and that kind of goes back to also what I said about investing in Jacobsburg and stuff, which are free open parks, and it makes it 100% accessible, to the area, to people that come in and use the trails. And then, one of the other. So based on the 400,000 or 500,000, I remember at previous conversations we talked a lot about getting lower income children in for free or schools. What percentage of those visitors would come from that? And are you including that when you say 400,000 or 500,000 a year?
I think the subsidized amount.
Sure.
Because if you're counting 400,000 and just say you're subsidizing 100,000 of them, you're actually only have 300,000 paying.
They might be included, but we averaged the financial model to account for. We didn't multiply to get the revenue. Our admissions multiplied 400,000 times.
Well, so
$25 ticket price.
Well, that's what that is on here. Just so you know, that's what this is. So your 400,000 is at $23.50 a ticket. So if any of them are subsidized, you're outside of your range of 20 to 25.
There is a complete study that looks at what's the percentage discounted.
I'm sorry, I did, yeah.
Yeah, so there are other non-visitor revenues that are involved.
Okay. Such as? Okay.
There's all kinds of other business.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's a huge amount of other. And if you look in, I think, the business plan that we provided, you'll see there's event revenue, there's workshop revenue, there's store revenue, there's a lot of other revenue. But even I'm saying when you get the total revenue just from people who are visiting, we didn't base it on times $23. First of all, the child admission is not $23. That was the adult admission. So we didn't base it on that. We took an average based on the number of different segments. The number of adults we expect to attend, the number of children, the number of seniors, the number of military, what the price point would be for each of those, and then we took into account discounted and free passes to get the business model. The 400,000 is probably might be the total number of participants, but you can't multiply the 400,000 times the business model.
And then, so we're comparing quite often you compare it to Crayola and the 400,000 that they get in. How does I think their ticket prices are pretty much in line of what?
I think it is $23, their ticket price.
So do you know how their expenses line up to yours? So if you're looking at the same, income of people or same amount of visitors, but if your expenses are twice as much, or do their expenses line pretty much in line with yours, the almost $9 million a year?
We don't have any data on Crayola's expenses. It's a private company. So.
Yeah, so they're a for-profit.
Sure.
We're not a not-for-profit. So our excess is really going to be limited to just building operating reserves, not to make a profit.
Right.
Yeah, and there is benchmarking against similar size organizations in similar markets that we got from some of the business studies we did, but not Crayola.
Okay.
So,
and then just one final thing was, so on the 400,000 on your benefits to the county, 80% of the visitors will come from outside of the county. So even if you did base it on the 400,000, that means obviously 20% coming from within the county. That's 80,000 a year. That's like 1/4 to 1/5 of the population of the county. So do you really think that every year you're going to get 1/4 to 1/5 of the county coming to this facility?
first of all, it may not be just one visit, it may be multiple visits, because when you count the number of visiting, it's not number of people, it's number of visits. So if you come 3 times, that's counted as 3. So it might not be number of people, but I looked to Joe, who provided the 80% number, and we just looked that up recently. I don't know if you have any further comments on that. I can't remember the data, sorry.
In front of me right now, but the capture rates that we were looking at for the close-in areas were, probably in the 20% range. So if you factor in for multiple visits with some of those people, you probably come up with a number.
Those will be the members too. So members come all the time, because the best thing you should do is buy a membership, because then you pay once and you get the value for your money. I wanted to mention one other thing too about the survey that you were talking, feel free to stay here, talking with Brian about in terms of the high income individuals and the profile of the Science Center visitor. We need that to develop our business model, because our business model requires a significant number of people of means, high educated, that are going to pay the money that will make the business model work. We are very much committed to serving those who are in need. Those just won't make the business model work. We have to do that through philanthropy largely, and we have philanthropy included in this budget. And so that's how we operate today. We need those families with the means paying the ticket prices, and then we want to use philanthropy to serve those that don't. And then I also wanted to get back to your comment about the Jacobsburg Environmental Center. We have had some great meetings, most recently with the Lehigh Valley Greenways group and also the Bushkill Stream Conservancy. And what we're talking about with those coalitions, well, Bushkill is one group, but with the coalitions of groups, is that they might even operate on site. They might conduct classes and do some of their programming on this site and be able to reach greater audiences that they could then convince to come to some of the programs at Jacobsburg or be involved in the trails. So I think, or get on the trails. The message is that this is a community science center. We're not building this for Da Vinci. We're building it to create the best resource possible and take all of your ideas and community partner ideas and put together an incredible science center that serves our families and our kids. So we want to, to benefit those other organizations and to all work together to have the best environmental education programs possible, basically, indoors, outdoors, wherever.
Are the studies big? Is it a lot of paper? Or?
The marketing studies?
I mean, it would be nice to take a look at them. I think that would maybe answer a lot of some of these questions.
We turned in a copy to the...
Trying to save the trees.
Thank you.
You all supported that marketing study.
For the squirrels.
Right.
And we turned in 1 or 2 copies, but we have them electronic also.
It seems like some of the questions are coming.
Yeah. And you even have you might even have the questions. Well, the questions that were asked were very interesting, actually. Reading through to get a sense of kind of how they approach it was very interesting.
So then everybody's like, why is she keep...
One, and then you.
I have a couple of questions, thanks. And anybody who wants to just come up here so they don't have to go back and forth is more than welcome, because I'm really not here to make everybody walk, but, it's a walkability thing. All right, I had a couple questions, and forgive me because you may have answered it already, and there's just a lot of information. I think you addressed the family price point. You addressed the 3.5 hours. I guess I asked, what is the methodology that you use to determine the actual exhibits and, like, these featured areas? Like, who made those decisions, and how did you derive those?
It was very much a team effort from early on. Joe helped to facilitate it. Brian was in the center of it, our director of education, myself. And then we engaged, as part of the architectural master planning process, We worked with the architects and exhibit designers that they engaged in the process. You're looking at, we know from our own experience, right, what appeals to visitors. You know, we're having animal adventure weekends right now. We know an animal's appeal. And if you come to the Da Vinci Science Center, you know, you can experience that. We've got anthropods, I think, this weekend. Is that correct? So we know that we're doing a lot of healthcare programs. We know the kinds of things that are appealing. And so we can build off that basis. We know that it's very important to have things that are relevant and relatable to the visitor. And we also are looking at careers and where are the greatest jobs in the STEM fields and the feedback that we've gotten from employers so we can expose young people to careers. We have the school curriculum to balance in and what are the key areas that are required in school. So we're looking at these various dimensions. I would say school and careers were very big. A few years ago, actually, we also had a consultant that looked at how we might tell the Leonardo story and at the same time deal with careers and also the school curriculum. Those themes, science and nature, science and me, anatomy, and science and technology inventions also happen to go very well with Leonardo. But it's driven by the audience, the schools and companies and the feedback from those entities.
Yeah, I just want to add that we collected feedback from the community as well. So we had 4 town hall meetings throughout Northampton County. We were in Bethlehem, Bath, Bangor, and Easton. So as an example, in the meeting in Easton, there was an expression of support for astronomy and observatory. We went back and looked at it, and that's one of the reasons why the rooftop observatory is in the plan.
Okay, thanks. And then along with that, what kind of educational programs are you thinking of offering? Because you talked a lot about the permanent exhibits and the potential, but it's going to be a permanent fixture for schools and other visitors. So I didn't hear much about that.
Programs are what we are really best known for. We have enormous opportunity to build on those. So everything from school workshops, you know, now when you come to Da Vinci, you automatically get a school workshop, to science shows, to after-school clubs, to overnight experiences, to we have an inventors lab. There'll be a we're calling it Creativity Studio. We may call it STEM Education and Innovation Center, but there'll be a distinct space that features workshops that are uniquely equipped for programming in different areas. So maybe you're doing a DNA extraction and you're in a specific lab that's related to human anatomy. Maybe you're getting into more the engineering, manufacturing side, and you've got 3D printers, laser cutters, you know, and all of those various kind of fab lab kinds of equipment. Maybe there's a wet lab, you know, so we will have labs and workshop spaces that are equipped to go more in depth following your experience on the exhibit floor as a visitor. Right now, a lot of our weekends, we have kind of drop-in workshop activities as part of the experience, and you're spending 30, 40 minutes in our creativity studio, for example, right now working on some kind of challenge. So programming is a really big part of who we are, and connecting with scientists and science educators, not just wandering around by yourself, but making that connection because we know that makes a big impact.
And that's what you're known for now, but I just wondered, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, Da Vinci started in Bethlehem, correct?
Yes,
Used to
we
be
did.
part of the, because I took my daughter there when it was in Fowler Center. We haven't been because she's outgrown and she's not STEM anymore. But so it started there, you moved to Allentown, but you're not going to replicate the same programs because you said you're going to do K1 and younger.
Yes.
So you're going to be looking to develop later age and stage programming. So then that leads to my next question. What kind of grants and sponsorships and partnerships are you trying to develop? Like who outside of public money, what kind of connections do you have with the major universities, with major science funding? Like who else are you looking to tap as NSF or
Absolutely.
NASA or any of those folks?
All of those. If you mean partnerships like who we're going to develop stuff with, right now when I said we're seeking major sponsors for each of the areas, we're seeking programmatic partners. We don't want them to just sponsor. We do want them to give money. But besides giving money, we want them to be a partner to help us develop and shape that area and bring on other partners who can help us. So take, for example, the 100-foot body. So you get a major sponsor of that area. That healthcare is changing so fast. So they would help work with us to develop that area along with faculty at our area colleges and universities and exhibit designers. But we don't want to just be done kind of when the exhibit opens. We want them to participate in the programming, but we want them to be a 10-year, we're looking at 10-year kind of deals where they're providing ongoing content expertise and changing up the experience over time. And that would be true in the factory area. That would be, probably less in the Nature Dome because the forest is the forest. But the interactive exhibit experience associated with that would be changing. So we're seeking major programmatic partners that are probably largely private or academic. And then we would absolutely anticipate seeking funding from, like, National Science Foundation has a big program for informal science education. So besides supporting research, it's specifically designed for people like Da Vinci Science Center. They do fund major exhibits. So that kind of thing.
Do you have a partnership with them yet, or have you?
We have been we have not had I have to say, National Science Foundation grant ourselves, but we've been a partner on many grants because these research universities go for research, but they're supposed to educate the public about what they're doing. So we often become the means for educating the public. But we have had many national grants, Department of Ed, Institute for Museum and Library Services, yes.
Can I just address that?
Please.
So from the board's perspective, it is critically important that we do not lose who we are as Da Vinci. And education is everything in terms of what we're offering. So everything will have an educational benefit, even if it looks like it's a fun attraction, right? I've been on the board of Da Vinci since 2008, so a little over 8 years, going on 9 years. The reason I'm still on the board and the reason I'm one of the board members that financially supports this idea is I have an admiration for this team on their ability to take the ordinary and make it extraordinary. And they create educational experiences for our guests when they don't even know they're learning, right? They make learning fun. We are not interested in a tourist attraction. Sal's interested in a tourist attraction. When they made their pitch to us, he told us all about the tourist, and they don't have manufacturing, they don't have industry, they don't have corporate. What we did was our challenge was, well, can we create an educational experience in the city of Easton that will look like a tourist attraction and bring enough people that we can make enough money to redeploy in the Lehigh Valley through outreach and other programming. So for us, it's all about the kids, it's all about education, it's all about programming, and it'll be a lot of fun as they're doing it, but there will be an educational component to everything that these guys do, and they are the masters. So when you asked who came up with the vision, I wanted to make sure that these guys were the ones that did it, and they come up with better ideas than many of the consultants, but we use the consultants to really I would say assess kind of the creativity and the ideas that we came up with, because I haven't seen anybody do it as well as these guys do. And so to make sure that we could do it at a scale that was sustainable is really where we brought a lot of the external help in. But the board is asking these very important questions as well. We do not want to lose our brand.
Okay. And then along with that, so is this going to be a freestanding, or do you see both entities being part of the whole of Da Vinci? Or is Science City one thing and Da Vinci and Allentown are different, or is it all part of the whole?
Well, there's actually 3 stools to the leg. So you'll have early childhood education in Allentown, you'll have the more robust experience here, and then outreach is the third component that not everybody can come to either of the locations, and so we go out to them and bring the programming and the education into the schools. So that's another critical component.
So I realize that you're coming to us because its actual footprint is in Northampton County, but are you asking Lehigh County for any funding? Because obviously it won't just impact the schools of Northampton County. Lehigh Valley tends to operate, and so since we have all these other partnerships, are you going to them for any funding?
Yeah, I'll ask Lynn to comment on that.
That's a good recommendation. We do get some support from Lehigh County now. Every year we get support from them, largely for exhibits, some of our traveling exhibits and programs, and they've been consistent over many, many years. But we have not asked them to support this project, and it's a good idea.
Okay. And then my last question, sorry folks, but I've been patiently waiting. The floodplain. All right, so his legs are in the air and we don't have to, we walk up through. You worried about floods? I didn't hear you address the actual floodplain study. Oh, did I? I was asleep, I apologize.
Aware of the weather, today, and today, this time of year, in general, across the country, around the world, it's just amazing how the weather has become increasingly dramatic, and there's so many big challenges.
Yes.
So our architects designed the facility to meet beyond what the requirements are for being in the 100 and 500 year floodplain because the weather is going crazy. We are designing the building to be as resilient as possible. I spoke to the fact that all the interior space is out of both the 100 and 500 year floodplain. There'll be kind of service stuff on the lower level, and the building is pushed back. And we're talking about on the Plaza doing things to just educate people about flood mitigation, like have an urban wetland, have interactive exhibits. But we're very, very aware. There's multiple in our master plan, multiple pages on how to deal with this particular location. Half of Easton, as you might know, is in the floodplain.
Wow.
So.
But we're not funding that.
And Bob, we're not funding it. Bob, that's one of the reasons for the increase in the cost is we modified the building structure.
Right. And the site, right, the accommodative site and the building structure adds a lot to the cost.
But location-wise, Brian's right. I mean, this is a perfect location for this type of facility.
Thank you.
Are you done?
I have other comments, but I could do them after. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Island. I don't know, this might be Glenn or Vince, you can jump in either one. I'm going to, programming, you guys know what you're doing. I mean, that's not my lane. And I mean, I think, you've been very successful in Allentown. I'm sure you're going to put together great programs. I mean, even if you can just essentially get people to understand you can make snowballs while you have global warming, and somehow they're not mutually exclusive, that would be a great thing. We could use some science and maybe even teaching civics to people. Maybe we can have a civics expo or something built in Easton, but so they understand how government works. But anyway, I don't blame you for coming here. Yeah, right. I would dare say they might find better examples. I don't want to drag this out, but part of the reason you came, my understanding was it had to do with money. So I'm going to bring it to a track on money. And I don't blame you for coming here. I mean, you're not doing anything different than any other group has done. That's the new reality. I mean, whether it's a ball yard in Allentown or Lehigh County, everything is now public. I mean, the governments have created an alphabet soup of funding streams and tax abatements, and all in the hopes of generating something. I hope it generates life-sustaining wages one day, but that's my hope on all of this. But anyway, going forward, I'm concerned about the 400,000 number, about the people, the number of folks, and that's just my concern about the actual revenue generation you're gonna need. I mean, Crayola, and I knew some leaders at Crayola for years. The Crayola Center is a nationally known, internationally known trademark. And at least at one time, without Hallmark, first Binny and then Hallmark, backing it, subsidizing it, they wouldn't have survived on their own as an entity. So there was some extra money. Now, that may not be true anymore, so I'm not going to say that's the case. So the numbers worry me a little bit. But as far as from where I'm concerned, the county, and looking at what you might come for us to possibly do is I have to go at them past. And I just have a couple questions based on what we have spent. I went through your invoices. And I believe we dispersed 4 checks in a total of $250,000 for 2018. And maybe you could just explain a couple things to me, and then I'll be fine. 3 checks were written to a Joseph Moore for over $67,000. Who's Joseph Moore? Is that Joe?
He's our chief project consultant.
Sorry, Joe. I was mesmerized by the biology and the night and the day, and I'm slipped right out of there. Thank you. And then A&E Comtech Service?
That was the business plan
Okay.
support we got for the benchmarking study.
And is that, now, I would think the business plan part of it is probably fluid, because as you go forward, you may have to adjust it. So that's going to be an ongoing particular, I mean, probably in all cases.
Well, theirs was a benchmarking business planning, but putting the context of our project in the context of a bunch of other science centers in similar sized markets. And then they did look at economic impact. A lot of the, I will say, bottoms-up business planning was developed by my CFO, who was a former controller of a $4 billion division of Air Products. So she has really strong in this business planning area, working with Joe to do every detail associated with a bottoms-up plan.
AECOM does a lot of work for Crayola. So
okay.
when they were doing that work, they in that 400 to 450 range, they felt pretty comfortable.
Yeah, and I mean, I wish you all the luck in the world in getting all the money you need. I'm only, maybe it doesn't sound nice, but I'm only concerned about what we have given and what we may give. Because I'm not going to tell you what programs to do. I don't know. I mean, you guys know. I'd like to see an observatory. I think that's a great idea. Like, I see Diriff and a few schools are getting back into doing that. I think that's fantastic and fascinating space science. So I don't know if that's, I know you mentioned that, but for me to give you advice on projects would be pretty silly. The other thing would be, now you're using Gross McGinley? They got 7,000, and they're your attorneys on for
There's
this
so
project.
much legal stuff on this
I understand,
project.
but they're going to be doing all the legal work, I take it.
We are actually also using that company, Baker Hostetler. You might have seen some billing for them.
Yes.
Okay, so they're doing some of the legal work associated with new market tax credits and having to put together the legal framework associated with that.
Yes.
So there may be some other specialized attorneys that we need as well outside of Gross McGinley.
No, I understand. Plymouth Sounding, LLC, is that illegal or is that like a consultant?
That is a consultant that is helping us with the new market tax credits.
Oh.
So the two of them are a team. She is the one that's getting all the introductions, presenting the proposals, helping us craft the proposals. He's the one that's providing the legal perspective.
Okay. And I guess of the $250,000 that you invoiced the county for, what other how much beyond that have you gotten from other sources? I mean, I know that's hard to.
1.3 million is the total.
There's the total.
It might even be almost 1 point. I actually have in anticipation of this meeting, I have a report on that that I just got.
Okay.
The total we've spent to date is 1.4 million.
Okay. Oh, okay. So I get it. So we're a little under 25% of what you've had to spend so far.
And it's been, we really appreciate it. Yes, correct.
Oh, no. It's, I'm once again, I'm a little anal on the dollars. The thing I guess I wondered when I went going through this was the idea that there were a couple things I didn't understand, like Easton Housing, EHDD, that's Easton Housing?
No, that's our architect.
Okay. I didn't.
No, that's all right. We didn't.
Out of human services, we use acronyms and initials all the time, and that's how they talk to one another. And I used to bang people on the head because I'd say, not everybody speaks your language.
No, that's the architectural firm.
Okay, and H2R is the research company.
That's a marketing research company.
Marketing research company. Yes. All right, and so what you're saying, and just so I understand, the goal, and that hasn't been confirmed yet, and you're hoping Sal does this, $30 million commitment from Easton.
Yes.
And you're hoping that'll come within a month, I'll say a month to be fair.
Well, he said Mark.
Oh, I'm sorry.
To county, or to city council. He wants to bring it forward. It'll take a couple meetings. He has to bring it forward, and then everyone discusses it, and then the vote is a couple weeks later. So we're very far along.
But to be fair, he doesn't need to come up with $30 million in a month. It's just
No. The commitment ongoing. No, that's true. And you did say now the $20 million from the state, which you said is pretty much guaranteed.
It's in legislation.
Oh, it's in legislation. Oh, Well, it's not quite guaranteed.
Well, it's like in a city of the third, whatever, it has all the legislation.
If we go forward with this project, it needs
You get it.
Yes.
Oh, all right.
Yes.
So if you get, so if you get that, and you get the 20 and you get the 30, you're going to have 50 million. That's not bad. Now, the question I have, and this may actually come from our end, and that's of this money, of this $250,000. A few of these packets had a lot of invoices, and one did not. Really, just sort of said it's miscellaneous or something. I'm just curious, of that $250,000, how much of that was direct county money, and how much of it was hotel tax? Or was it all hotel tax? All $250,000 is hotel tax. Okay. Going forward, yeah, I mean, this might be something they would answer. Going forward, if we give them more money, will it be hotel tax, or will it be will there be any intermingling of county funds beyond hotel tax?
Should we have a proposal for you, sir? We'll outline that completely. You can anticipate it will probably be hotel tax.
All right, and that isn't then dinging any other projects or groups. If they get X amount of dollars, let's say, going forward on hotel tax, that's not going to create a burden for any groups we're already giving to.
Not with respect to any current commitments. No.
Okay.
Well,
no.
Obviously, any dollar that goes to one group doesn't go to another.
You answered my question about, I appreciate that. Third-party expenses, the second check of 8318 or 91018 was $58,111 to third-party expenses. Is that just a grouping of these various things? I didn't see anything back that up.
I can tell you what they were exactly if you want. I have a report right here.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so
Great.
the $58,000 was $5,000 to AECOM, $33,000 to Joe Moore, $5,000 to Plymouth Soundings. So third parties would be like AECOM, Joe, Plymouth Soundings. Gross McGinley was $4,700. Baker Hostetler was $7,500.
Right.
And then there were some other supplies, a miscellaneous amount that I don't.
That's cool. No, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, so I get the sense when I listen to you, and please correct me if I'm wrong, you're as I was listening to everybody and speak to you, you're looking for 2/3 of the funding will probably be public dollars in one form or another.
Yes.
Did I hear that right?
Yes.
And then you're hoping to get 1/3 from private, and that would include, like, for example, the corporate logos on the back of the report.
Yes.
By the way, I think corporate folks always love to get their logos out. I think you should determine the size based on what they give you. It is
a little bit.
Logos
the ones at the bottom are smaller, and the ones at the top.
I'm kidding.
It will be more official. That's a Science Catalyst Society. Now that we're going forward in the official project,
our corporate cousins are big on their trademarks getting out there. I think that government trademarks should be 3 times bigger. But anyway, the thing is, and I saw. Mr. Warner was touching on this. So far, committed to date, $2.6 million from the private sector, and I understand that they're maybe sitting on their hands a bit because is this project going forward? Your goal with them is $38 to $65 million.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, seriously, do you feel is that something that you? What are you basing that number on?
Well, we have about $15 million in active discussion with corporate sponsors right now.
Okay.
So now we won't get all those at those amounts. We're in active discussion, but
right.
So.
All right. Yeah, I mean, look, I'm trying to think along here because I mean, eventually, because Mr. McGee is the chair, and I had talked to him, and he said we're going to talk about what's been spent and that's why I'm bringing these questions up. Because that helps me then going forward. Because I know you're going to come to us with a proposal at some point. And that's why I've said I'm not as concerned about Sal. Again, I understand we have, this is our county seat, and I would love to see a project in the county seat of Easton that would draw more people, help the tax base, and do a lot of things, because I am committed to Easton as our county seat and helping it prosper. If this is Sal and he feels this will help you guys prosper, and him, whether he wants to call it a tourist attraction or build a Ferris wheel near it, I don't know, but that's up to Sal. At the end of the day, though, my concern is, you making the numbers you want to make.
There will be no Ferris wheels on the
No, not on yours. Sal will find a piece of... That'll be part, that is part, that may be...
Water and go up.
That is part of science. What happens when you dip underwater and then come out quick and back in? So, all right, you put body temperature sensors on people. See, I'm getting involved in projects now, Mr. McClure. Don't get me going there. Anyway, the thing is, so the funding, all right, and I understand your board's good is generous, and that's a good thing. So, I mean, the big thing is going to be, hopefully these grants go through that you're anticipating from the city, from the state, and from your private. The universities. Now, I know on one hand you have universities with science departments that are top-notch, Lafayette, Lehigh. In that sense, have you reached out to them to be part of going forward with these projects? The other part of that is they sit on some huge endowments. I mean, they sit on millions. Are they in any way, shape, or form considered as a possible funding source? I mean, I know they'll slam the door right out of the gate and say, "Oh, we can't do that." They can do what they want. Do you think that they may be potential funding sources?
I mean, Lafayette did contribute to the science catalyst, planning. Their logo is in there. And
that was a service.
Lafayette College has been very generously meeting with us to discuss potential funding opportunities, not meaning Lafayette, but broadly, in terms of some folks they know who have been generous to Easton entities in particular in the past, as well as they think there's great opportunity with universities to go to, when we go to the National Science Foundation, we will need to have a research scientist with a PhD. Now, we may have that with the new animal specialists that we hire. And actually, we have a couple PhDs on staff, but not in that particular area. So we may very well, it's going to speak highly to go with a partner like a university like a Lafayette or Lehigh with faculty members who have gotten NSF grants in the past who are helping us to develop this experience.
So it's possible. I mean, on one hand, that faculty from either Lehigh, Lafayette, whatever, Lafayette particularly, could serve as consultants to help ease your burden, or maybe contribute their service in an in-kind type of in-kind contribution. Yes. Well, that's good. I'm glad to hear that.
And the colleges we're in active discussion with the colleges about internships, experiential learning, potential use of the space, and as they look at the experiences we're creating and how those might be valuable to support their curriculum.
Okay. So how was your experience on the $250,000 dealing with the county? Were they cooperative? Were they helpful?
They were fabulous.
Did they turn you down?
No,
did they tell you
helpful.
You couldn't spend money? All right.
Extremely helpful.
All right. And I'm sorry it's late, but that's my thing is money. So anyway, thank you. You've answered my questions. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. I'm done.
Real quick, thanks for the presentation. It was very enlightening. I don't have many issues with, I know your track record. I've been at your facility many times, and I think you guys can pull this off on programming, and I think the location is excellent. I'm not too concerned about floodplains. We can deal with floodplains when we build buildings. I think the location's great, as far as your 100-mile radius. My only issue is going to be the funding. This thing's got to work. Sal made a statement that it's not. I'm sorry, the mayor made a statement that this is not, taxpayers' money. It may not be taxpayers' money. It may be hotel tax. But where we spend hotel tax at one place, we're not spending it somewhere else. And we have good examples out there where we have generated a lot of money through good decisions with our hotel tax. We also have examples where we did not do so well with our hotel tax. I think that's our duty to make sure that we're doing the right thing and we're going to get a return for our community on our hotel tax. I don't think it's much different than any other tax that's out there. It's coming out of the public, and I take that very serious. So I wish you the best of luck. I appreciate it. The numbers just got to work, not only on paper but in reality. So, you know, the more, and I guess to finish up my last question, I'm pretty new on this board. My last question would be, at what point, and maybe I shouldn't even be asking this, but I'm curious, at what point do you come back to us? Do you come back to us after the city has approved, the state has approved? Do you come out somewhere in between there? I'm kind of curious what point I need to make my decision on and how far along the project will be in funding before you come back to us and with the ask, which is ultimately what this is about.
I mean, you may want to know more of the scope and, you know, wait until we've defined the scope and we're a little further along in the fundraising.
Oh, I like that answer.
Refer to Mr. McClure and Tina and Mark to advise us and further conversation with you all on what you recommend.
Very nice.
Just one final comment, so that for some of the newer members, the council has in the past given $1 million in hotel tax dollars to PBS, Steel Stacks, ArtQuest, and have had very successful venues. Okay. And some have gone on, actually have taken over. They don't need the hotel tax money anymore. I think the situation is the same here, that we have to look at the numbers that work for the 32 other people that the corporations, nonprofits that come with to the hotel tax dollars and look for help. So the question becomes not to overreach, okay? The question becomes, what can the county, if you do come back to us? Right now, you haven't asked for anything, but if you do come back to us and ask for something, there are parameters, and I'm hoping you understand that there are other programs that depend upon that funding also, so that since it's I have to fight for it. It's my Easton. That's what I represent. But the fact is that I also have to look out for, as a council, we have to look out for those other organizations. So I thank you for your time. I wish you well with your projects. I still have concerns. Mr. Heckman repeated a number of the things that I had said regarding your funding plans. In some cases look anemic for what you're trying to get to, and after 2 years I would hope it would look better. Okay, and I really just sincerely mean that. 36%, 38% after 2 years is, and the other thing is, if you're putting on programs, you put on 4 programs for the public. When did you do those? Was it at the time of the aquarium, or was it at the time of the new program?
We've done some program. Well, we did a series of 4.
Yes, but was it done
in the fall before, at the time of the aquarium? But then we've had several meetings with business councils, Easton Business Council, where we've given various updates and asked for questions, service organizations,
just curious,
and that kind of
because
thing,
I
but
know
not like
that
a public meeting.
I know there was a lot of public input early on with the aquarium, but that changed. And now, if there were the same thing, the public input was done, I'd just be curious that what had happened with the change in the venue so dramatically, because it went from an aquarium to a dome. So just some thoughts, okay? And it's not a negative. I'm just pointing out things that you should know that people are talking about, that things have changed, and that when you come back to this council, and should you ask for money, that there are other projects that are in that pot, and you have to consider how much you're going to, if you do, ask for, okay? Thanks.
You might be interested to know that one of the questions in the survey, the consumer demand study that H2R did, was gauging the interest and appeal of the Pocono Aquarium, as well as, and then we compared the results to the Science City, and we actually did quite a bit better. But I think the reason was, from all the comments, was that the variety of experiences we were offering that are so different. And people know what an aquarium is. They go to aquariums, but they really liked the forest at night, the 100-foot body, the combination of things we were offering. But it was interesting. We scored about 10-12% higher on the overall appeal and the interest in visiting than the Pocono Aquarium.
Is it true that the mayor wants you to name the man Sal? I don't know.
It's going to be a neutral person, first of all. It can't be.
Not anymore.
No, I'm sorry.
Sally?
No.
Sally.
I just would like to maybe make a final comment that, we've spent a lot of time going through this, and from the board's perspective, I would say the 120 to 160, Joe and his team came up with almost $200 million of potential funding sources. So when we embarked on this, we didn't want to limit ourselves, and so we set a very lofty target and vision. I got to tell you, I think we feel really good that we can raise $100 million. Do we get to 120 to 160? I think there's as much doubt in us as you guys have expressed, as council has expressed to us today, and it's something that we discuss with the mayor and with the board all the time. I think we have an opportunity to do something really special here on this site. Whether it looks exactly like this or not, I would venture to say it probably won't, but I still think this team can deliver an amazing educational experience on this site. And we look forward to working with county as we go forward and figure out what that's exactly going to look like.
Mr. Chairman, let me just say, I hadn't heard from you before, but hearing from you today has been helpful for me, a great deal of help in my thought process, because I really get a sense, we talked about what we want to do and what would be nice, but you really were hitting on a lot of the business end, and you're looking at the numbers. It sounds like you're always crunching the numbers back and forth. And people don't always like that, but because, we have grand visions, but at the end of the day, those grand visions have to be paid for.
They do.
So I appreciate the effort that I see that you put into this and you're putting into it.
Well, it's been my pleasure, and I will make sure I'm here the next time.
I just saved my stuff. I let everybody else go. I just have a quick comment. First of all, I think it's really great that you guys are undertaking such a difficult project, and it's unique. And I think it's the long-term vision that is like Da Vinci's mission statement, which I read online, and I looked at your website, and I hope it gets up and going. I think there was a lot of really good questions asked tonight, and maybe provided Da Vinci with and the boards some helpful information moving forward. It's the long-term goal range, and it's the employers are starving for technical skills, and that's an important part. That's a long-range important part. And I did speak with Vitalik, the CEO or the vice president of Vitalik, and he does. They're having trouble finding people.
We're seeing it. Any technical,
and that's just one. And that's manufacturing, and that's in the county, and that's jobs, and that's important. So, I wish you well. I hope things go well for you in your funding and your plan. And I hope you would share some of the studies with us. We'd like to see them. So, thank you.
And thank you for your time.
Okay. With anything else? If not, we'd like to motion for adjournment.
Second.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.